And for more on all this, we're going to bring in retired NYPD detective and host of Pat Brosnan Live, Pat Brosnan. He is joined by our special guest today, White House and Washington reporter for Politico, Daniel Littman. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Pat, I want to start with you. And I want to talk about the danger that federal law enforcement officers are facing right now. Authorities in Minnesota say the agent who shot last night at that migrant feared for his life while he was being ambushed while chasing down that illegal migrant from Venezuela, as opposed to following the officer's orders. The suspect ran, and then along with the other two others, they attacked the ICE agent with a shovel and a broom handle. I just want to get your take on this. Why are we continuing to see these attacks on our law enforcement?
Well, it's pretty simple. The fact pattern in the last three shootings over the last 8 days is identical. They ignored a lawful order. They then resisted arrest. They then ran, and they then cornered a federal agent. It's not an option to ignore a lawful order. It's the law. It's a felony. And when they use those four verbs, ignore, run, resist, and corner, the use of deadly physical force under the federal Constitution is 100% warranted. And those are the facts. I think the bad guys need to take a tutorial or a seminar, kind of brush up on their homework, and realize it is not an option. It's not a check box. You do not have any optionality. When a lawful order is issued, you must stop in your place. Don't run, don't fight.
Yeah.
And you'll not be hurt. It's just a fact.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that is the law. All of us, I think, by now have seen that video from the other wake officials say that ICE agent there involved in last week's deadly shooting, that he suffered from internal bleeding after being hit by Renee Good's car. Now, the left, of course, arguing that she was just trying to get out of the way before the officer shot and killed her. But it really, really is seeming more and more like self-defense now. Daniel, what's your take?
Yeah, I think it's important for the government to have a full investigation and look at, interview all the witnesses, look at all of these videos, try to see what she was doing. If you look at kind of her car tires, they're even analyzing, they were pointed in the opposite direction of that ICE officer. And of course, this is just, a tragic situation when you see 2,000 ICE officers get flooded into Minneapolis, and then you have people who are against ICE that want to make a stand and don't want to comply with law enforcement. And you've seen there was a video of another ICE officer a couple days later saying, hey, you don't want to be like Renee Good, basically. And so it's mostly like a message that has been sent. But this officer, we'll see if this person even gets pardoned at the end of Trump's term if there's a Democrat elected to try to prevent his being in jeopardy.
Yeah, more and more information, though, coming out on both of these cases. Meanwhile, the left really continues to double down and amplify their anti-ICE and law enforcement rhetoric. Check this out.
DHS, as it's operating, is now a threat to every one of us.
What I can tell you, what is happening in America, the path that we are traveling certainly reminds me of many of the images that we saw in the 1930s in Germany. And we should stand up to this lawless administration.
Wow. All right, Pat, I want to get your reaction to those comments and the Democrats continuing to claim that these ICE agents aren't being properly trained.
Well, freedom is the most powerful drug on the planet. The fact is, they will fight ferociously, the bad guys, to remain free. I locked up over 1,000 felons in the South Bronx in the 80s and 90s, and not one of them, not one time did they thank me for shipping them off to Rikers. Instead, they ran like Olympic sprinters and they fought like a tiger. And that's the reality of it. They don't give up easy, but they have to understand it is not an option. And under President Trump, the rules are being enforced because finally crime has become illegal again. And that's the point of the federal Constitution, and that's the point of the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act, mob rule does not outrank the Constitution. Not today, not ever.
Yeah, and Democrat leaders in the state of Minnesota, it seems they're only really, pouring fuel on the fire. Listen to this.
Let's be very clear. I've seen conduct from ICE that is disgusting and is intolerable. If it were your city, it would be unacceptable there too.
News reports simply don't do justice to the level of chaos and disruption and trauma the federal government is raining down upon our communities. They're breaking windows, dragging pregnant women down the street, just plain grabbing Minnesotans and shoving them into unmarked vans. Donald Trump wants this chaos. He wants confusion. And yes, he wants more violence on our streets.
We're talking about violence. The Department of Homeland Security reports attacks on law enforcement are up over 1,000%. Daniel, I want to get your take on that and why Democrats, at least seemingly, aren't working to quell the situation and bring the temperature down here.
Yeah, I think it's incumbent on both parties and major political leaders across the country and across the aisle to not pour fuel on the fire, where we live in this internet culture where it used to be Jacob Fry, if you read 30 years ago, he wasn't plastered over social media. And so a lot of these people on both sides, they're kind of building their brand. We've heard talk of Christine Noem, potentially run for president one day. And so I think that a lot of these types of how she conducted ICE operations, whether they surged resources into cities when they didn't think that there was enough to justify this, that's all important questions for people to ask the Department of Homeland Security.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Daniel and Pat, thank you both so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And Daniel, we're going to talk to you a little bit later on in the show, so stick around.
Thank you.